that you've asked yourself, and again, being honest with yourself, all right? Like this self-healing journey is not, or this healing journey, let me not say self-healing journey, but this healing journey is not one that is easy to grapple with yourself, because like you really are like, having to deep dive and look in and be honest, and even be honest about the things that you're being honest about, and quote unquote honest about, right? Like, because sometimes we think we're being honest, but the reality is we're leaving out one or two things, and those one or two things are actually the key to taking us to the level that we need to be. When we think about what it is that we need, right? Like I said, we have to first define who it is that we are. At the core of who we are mind, body, spirit. And our being has a desire to be fulfilled in all areas. Now, you may be good in the mind and in the body, but your spirit is troubled, and you may not even know why, right? I know for me, a little bit about myself. I grew up in the church. I grew up, as a Pentecostal, fuego Pentecostal. Okay. I grew up Pentecostal. And there was, there was nothing really major or anything wrong that happened and I'm scarred or anything. But one thing I will say is that, and I know this goes for a lot of young people today, there always felt like there was something missing. And I was someone who was super involved in the worship team. I got little vocals here and there. Involved in the worship team. I was always involved in this and in that. However, there was, in a sense, conviction missing, right? I wasn't convicted about what I was doing. I was doing because I was doing what I was doing because I kind of had to, right? Like I couldn't go against my parents, but also, within myself, I didn't necessarily feel the purpose, if that makes sense, that I was supposed to in my life. So as we all know, we go to college and, things got a little cray. And for me, they definitely got a little cray. Okay. But, praise the Lord, like the prodigal son had brought me back. Okay. But when he did, the honeymoon phase faded fairly quickly once things got bad, really bad. And it took me almost 7 years really in full, but about 8 years to get to the point where I'm at now. And it all stemmed from realizing that the person that I thought I was actually a puppet, a pretender. It was a mask. Because of the trauma that I've experienced in my life and all the experiences that I've had in my life, as we all do, right? I didn't realize that my coping mechanism was actually complete dissociation of reality. And the truth is that I was living my life in a false reality with a false persona, and even like introducing myself as Lay Juice, right? It's interesting because no one ever calls me by my real name. I have always lived life with an alias. Like when I was in, school, like people called me Julie, still not my full name. Like people I grew up with call me Julie, or they call me Juge or Juju, or they call me other things. When I got to college, Juju was my thing. And then, which still is, right? Like I still go by that nickname, but also, then I created this persona of the juice, and like, I was just living in these various characters because me, Julianne, okay, wasn't someone that I wanted to be, because Julianne had a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, a lot of drama, and a lot of trauma that she didn't want to face, and she didn't want to actually dive in and do the work necessary to, be healed. But because I also didn't know, where do I go for healing? And we're going to get to that. The thing is, knowing that you have a problem is the first step to actually fixing the problem. But sometimes, well, not sometimes, most times, when something is broken, you need an outside source to actually come and do that fixing. Even a plant, right? Plants have the ability to regenerate, to regrow stems, regrow roots. However, if the nutrients aren't available in its surroundings, it won't grow. It'll choke it and it'll die. So this idea of self-healing is kind of a false one, because you can't really heal yourself. Well, you can't heal yourself, because if you could, everybody would be okay, right? So we have to recognize that body, the physical, we can control that to a certain extent. If you're healthy, able-bodied, you have everything, like to a certain extent, you can control body. Mind, a little bit more difficult to control, but in a sense, you can control that as well. But that last piece of the spirit is the one where it makes the difference between being able to reach fulfillment as opposed to just staying satisfied. So going back to this idea of foundation, we have to sit back and think, is the source from which I'm getting my nutrients, and when I'm talking about nutrients, I'm talking about feeding your soul, is the source that I'm drawing from a well of life, or is it actually a well of death? Now you may ask, well, what constitutes something as a well of life and versus a well of death? Well, we're going to get into that deeper in episode 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But I just want to take the time to really sit back and ask these questions, because it's really critical that you take a second to analyze yourself and really take a second to be real with yourself. So when you think about how you're feeding your soul, I want you to actually sit back and think, does it feel as though I'm continuing to have to do more, find more, look for something different? I have the money that I want. I have the car that I want. I have the house that I want. I have the husband that I want. I have everything that I could want, that I could desire. But yet there's something missing. If the answer to that question is yes, that means that you are not feeding your soul the right way. You are not actually providing your being, the core of who you are, your essence. You are not giving it the nutrients that it needs, right? We can be just like, certain foods. You can be eating nutrient-rich food, or you can be eating food that may be high in calorie but ain't got no type of nutrient at all. So what kind of food are you eating?